So sadly, I mean, there's some people that are sort of surprised by me that I still think that my photographs just because it's been 7 years and I haven't 100% undeniably proven it, but I've proven that forensic anthropologists couldn't find any significant differences to disprove the photo. And so people on, is it Third Hour, that were quoting and watching just that little part of Shannon Tracy saying it's 90 some odd percent that that's scandal daguerreotype matches. I didn't see that in Millions. I might have missed it, but I didn't see that there. They didn't use percentage in my paper. I couldn't find it in any actually scholarly journals. Um, Either it matches or it doesn't. Usually there's a verified photo of someone. So when it comes to a death mask, the paper that was published in the Anthropological Review, it was the first one. It really was. And that can't be disproven. It's the first, it's the only paper that forensic anthropologists have backed. Someone's claiming to have forensic anthropologists. I found no evidence of that. I found the opposite. Um, Two I worked with, two in England that someone else knew, don't think the Larson daguerreotype is Joseph Smith. Um, but it was finding the history of Kendall County book. It was finding George Peck's biography that proved the man who printed my picture, J.S. Bibbins' father, J.S. Bibbins, knew Emma Smith, and he is that Elisha Bibbins, 100%, because everything that George Peck describes of the death of Elisha Bibbins matches up with the one of the Elisha Bibbins whose son is J.S. Bibbins, who his wife Alice went to go live with, but they're describing him dying at a specific date, specific location, and how he died in a chair. So three sources, it all lines up. The man who printed my picture, his father knew Emma Smith. And Joseph Smith III traveled through Newark. He just called it Georgetown. So I'm going to pull up history of Kendall County and show you how Elisha Bibbins is throughout this whole thing. He was very instrumental in Kendall County when Joseph Smith was alive. I'm sure there's evidence out there I that I haven't that I just haven't found yet that would really support this more, that people maybe aren't sharing with me. So please just share it with me. You know, if you are that person, like, don't be afraid to talk to me or share that evidence. Don't hold out on me. Please stop holding out on me, people. Um, but I definitely know, like, when I found this all out, it's like Mark Staker knew. I'd contacted him about the photo. He knew everything about George Peck in his book. He'd read his book. And he's such a good historian, it wouldn't have taken him 5 minutes to find evidence that 100% the man who printed my picture, his father, is the one that helped Emma Smith convert her father. But because they would all pray in the woods all together. Um, and so what I'm going to pull up here is just doing like a short search of Georgetown. So Georgetown is what Newark, Kendall County, Illinois used to be called. And you can see the back of my picture is Newark, Illinois. And Joseph Smith III lived in Plano in the 1860s. This was printed in the 1860s. That's Providence. And the reason I, yeah, was convinced is because it was the Smith family album it came out of. But here they're talking about the petition to change the name to Newark, Georgetown, because there was another Newark. in the beginning of business of Newark or Georgetown. And so I'll show you again the evidence if you're new that Joseph Smith III was familiar with Georgetown because he would travel from Newark, from Plano to Mission or to LaSalle County, which Mission's a township in LaSalle County. His second wife, Bertha Madison, he married in 1869. She was from LaSalle. So he would frequently go between those points. But a lot of the members of the Church of Christ Latter-day Saints were from that area. I'll just show you even more. The region around Georgetown was the finest, and it was like really good farmland. And we can also pull up just Newark. And so and then there's also a part where Elisha Bibbins is talking about Lisbon, Millington. So it was about the 1840s when they changed the name, and it was around the exact same time that they changed the borders of Newark being in LaSalle County to being part of Kendall County. So Joseph Smith III, Alexander Smith, and David Hiram Smith pretty much all lived in Kendall County, 1860s, 1870s at some point, but Joseph Smith III consistently. David Hiram just kind of starting having a mental breakdown and left there, and then went to Alex, and then Joseph III had already struggled and he went to a mental institution, but he did live in Plano, Kendall County, Illinois. So I see Newark is all throughout this, but it was once called Georgetown. And so here you see petition legislative the name of Georgetown be changed to Newark. There was another George, so the other Georgetown, and then here you see Mr. Bibbins presenting the incorporation of the Newark Academy. So I guess he did like the name, but he didn't want to be a part of Kendall County. He wanted to stay a part of LaSalle County. And Joseph III's second wife was from LaSalle County. And then as I looked through this and kept looking through the memoirs, for some reason I would try to just focus and find, just because it's such a huge book, the parts where he talks about what happened in the 1860s. And I felt inspired just a couple months ago to just read after that. And the thought came in my head, he's going to talk about what happened in the 1860s or where he had traveled. You want to know this. You want to know this, Debbie. And I was just really excited when I found some more information. But the first time he talks about Newark, but called it Georgetown, and there's newspaper articles saying that they still called it Georgetown way after the name change. But 1860s, he went and saw his saints, traveled from Nauvoo, went to visit them, and then went back to Nauvoo, basically. But he would just go back and forth, and then he finally moved because he's like, but I have a farm here. I think it's just financially, he just couldn't live where his saints were for about 6 years. And they, I guess, convinced him he could make money with their paper, but so it was on the Fox River. See, there's the Fox River. There's Newark. Then he starts talking about Millington and Georgetown, renamed to Newark, in that section of country known as Mission in LaSalle County, southwest of Ottawa. And so he talks about Mission. So this is LaSalle County. And then there are little townships. Okay, and then Joseph III talks in 1887 about going back to Plano. He had left. And it says that he went to Plano. He actually went to Sandridge. he drove over to Mission in LaSalle County. It had been a number of years since I had driven between these points. So it's like he's saying that I've been through these points a lot. Why? Because Bertha Madison is from LaSalle County. Possibly Mission, which would be interesting when I show you the borders of Mission Township. Anyway, he just was just sort of getting distracted and he got confused and he was lost. But when he traveled through Georgetown, he's not talking about the one on the border of Indiana. He's talking about he's not going east, he's going west from Plano or Sandwich to Mission Township. Still at Newark. He was lost, but when he got to Newark, approached the home of the Haverhill family, which I verified. There's a Havenhill, Haverhill, whatever. I've seen it both ways, but they're linked to Newark, Illinois. So even though it's only 10 miles away from Plano for like years, I'm like, why doesn't he talk about Newark? Why? Because they changed the name. I didn't know that till this year. Like the things I find out organically over 7 years, you think if I made this up, I would have known that in the summer of 2017 when I was like, you know, I hate pot more than anything in the world. I'll just be honest. I lived with a very old woman that was LDS, but for whatever reason, she kept attracting people that would say they were LDS, but were on drugs. I was not, am not, never have been, and I struggled to have compassion for them, but like there were 2 or 3 drug addicts, or I actually think everyone was but me, to be honest, seriously. So I was when I bought this, and I clearly knew nothing. I didn't know anything about Maudsley's artwork. I didn't know anything about David Rogers. I didn't know where Joseph III had lived. I knew nothing. And I have several videos from that summer and that fall. I only knew after I bought it, after I paid money, that there was like a political meeting in Newark, Illinois, and I got all excited. And there were members of the church there. Yay! It could be him. And I found out that there was a CDV that was of Emma Smith in 1845 on an 1860s CDV. And that's the clearest, oldest image of her is from the 1860s copy of an 1845 daguerreotype. But this is from the memoirs of President Joseph III on page 340. And so LaSalle is 41 miles from Plano, LaSalle, Illinois. I might change this because he's going to Mission Township. But anyway, Bertha Madison, she's from LaSalle County. There's another Georgetown, but that's 159 miles. And it's east. He's talking about Newark. He's 100% talking about Newark. And then I've got these maps here so you can see. There's Mission Township, sorry. So he's going from, why is that? It's not cut off. I need to zoom out. Okay. He was there, he went there, got lost, found his way and got to Newark, and then he got to Mission Township. And there is a Norway. So I don't really know what's actual, was she from LaSalle? I don't know. But apparently her father moved around a ton too. But the reason he would go between these points is because Bertha Madison was from there. But there were, members of his church there. And then here's LaSalle County. You see it's a much wider area than Mission Township. So the township is a little section inside of the county, just like Big Grove is a township inside of Kendall County. So then he went there. He had friends there where J.S. Bibbins lived, and they're just like a page apart in the 1870 census, which I'm not going to pull up right now, but the first time I found that out, I was showing you every single detail. But I'm not going into every single detail today. And I mean, there were Smiths, other ones there, but I just couldn't find one or images that looked like my picture. There was like a Smith's Tavern, but that's not like a family. But there's, just some names that you can kind of find. A W. Smith. I had researched him. I really went through all these names. But here they do talk about Joseph Smith in the history of Kendall County because, they just heard about all that. And they also had Joseph Smith III in Kendall County. So a Charles Smith, Elizabeth Smith. And yeah, so over the years, I've just spent a lot of time trying to see what other Smiths were there. But either way, the person who bought my picture, it had other images of Smiths in it. And when he tried to sell me, it was a woman that looked nothing like Emma, but it was printed from in Missouri. Where did Joseph Smith III and Alexander Hale Smith end up the last few years was in Missouri. And yeah, and traveled a lot. A George I. Smith. So there are other ones that very likely may not be related to Joseph Smith, but still, it was one printed. In the background matches Emma Smith's background. It's this uneven, that's an uneven background. And it's a shorter background and it has some sheen to the background. There's sheen on the background. And he matches the death mask. So if you just scroll down on this page, here you can see similar lighting to Phoebe Woodruff's picture. So I think Emma Smith's 1845 daguerreotype, she has a little bit better lighting, but Phoebe still had the unfortunate lighting. But I think, Lucian Foster might have found a way to rectify the issue and seeing how these were turning out, because you don't always see that there's bad lighting when you take a photo. Like you think the person looks fine, and then you take the photo, you're like, oh crap, like this is darker on that side, a lot lighter, but it's straight down. And then you see all that light right there, and there's a table. And just the shape of this, I think it's the edge of a gas lamp because they existed back then. And he lived in the mansion house. I think I can see, it's not so evident in her picture, the shorter background. I think I can see it. But in this particular picture of Wilfred Woodruff, it's that similar background, the draped side. So I think this is the daguerreotype from 1844 that he wrote about having done. And so it's very hard to know who took a daguerreotype and who's in it unless the family keeps it and it doesn't get damaged. But her daguerreotype got very damaged. They knew who it was in it, and it got donated by Dave and to the Community of Christ, the original daguerreotype. But it doesn't look remotely this clear. This image is from an 1860s print. That's the clearest, oldest image of Emma Smith is an 1860s print, but the image is from 1845. Okay, so this being a CDV does not debunk it, and a lot of people bring that up. Oh, that's been disproven because it's not a daguerreotype. I'm like, no. His daguerreotype was probably often held, and cried over, and you imagine the distress and the war and all the craziness, the harassment that the Smith family, like they actually were harassed. Like when people are actually harassed, they were actually harassed. And so they might have dropped the daguerreotype, but clearly there wasn't enough damage that when this was made, it was able to be as clear as it is. But but there's definitely enough artwork showing this retreating forehead. You can see on this page that I've shown. It just takes a minute to load. But this is 1842, but you can see these hair follicles are placed farther apart. That's far apart from that, right? It's very thin right there, but it's gone on the sides all the way back to there, and you don't see any evidence of that in the Larson daguerreotype. And speaking of which, so I kind of felt like just looking at this, so this is, I sort of talked about this in the comment section. This is Mormon Book Reviews video. And who really knows who did this work? So I'm not even going to say the name of anyone. I just want to analyze it because I just felt like I needed to look at the comment section. I saw that guy that was saying at this minute mark, and then I saw that this was 3D and turning. They're like, there you go. His nose is big enough. Is it? What changed? What happened in the nose right here? Look at this, the shading. Those of you that are artists, you see it change? I do. And I know the person being interviewed right there watches my channel. And I made a video in 2022 explaining, well, here's a picture of Elder Benner, and I just kept showing him from the front and the side. Same with an actor. But you know, like church history department, they created a 3D of the death mask, and so he does use that. And so here you see like the bridge of the nose is as high as the death mask, and it lines up with there. But it's a shading change, and the shading change in this is up there, and it states, oh, this is with the death mask. Suddenly, it's like they use the burn till. So I'll show you a lot of the differences, and then I'll just say it real quick. There's a highlight hitting right here, wherever the lighting is coming from, and the shade change is with the lower lash line. But here, the shade change is like way up here. Not even with the lash line, it's up with that crease. Just look at it. And what else I notice is this odd highlight right there, and the shape of this eyebrow, like this, it wasn't there before. Like it's almost funny. It's almost like he got his eyebrows plucked because suddenly there's a highlight right there, trying to make the eyes look more open. This deep crease disappears, and then some new scratches show up right there. Like I don't know where that scratch came from, you know, but it could be the angle. Yeah, granted, it could be the angle. And more, these other scratches showed up from another photo of the daguerreotype, but this shouldn't just disappear. And there you see it. Now you don't. Now you see it. Now you don't. And so it almost makes the eyes look softer when they take it away in the eye. And then the lower lash line disappears. Here's the lower lash line. It's all right there. Whoops, didn't want to do that. And something appears that isn't there, which is seen on the death mask. I mean, he's doing a superimposition of the death mask, but this isn't just putting the death mask on there and bring the opacity down. But this is added and made to look organic, but it's not organic. It's not there. Same with this side. But that's something you see in my picture, is just things completely falling into place. And so the nose was really changed. This is not how this, okay, The death mask looks about that angle a little bit from that side, but we just grab the burn tool, darken this, darken that, I think is, in my opinion, what happened with the lips. You see this dark line? It's almost like a hard edge. And that was what makes me think it's Photoshop and not at all just a true superimposition. And that this is lighter, and then this dark line. That's changed. This gets lightened. I mean, obviously some things will sort of lighten and look softer when you superimpose, but it's pretty drastic. And the chin, the shadows, there's a deep shadow right there, and a shadow like that. And this is a unique feature right there, that his chin is very asymmetrical and it has this odd angle like that, and he's facing forward. And this nostril is a lot higher than that. These are things you just don't see in the death mask. But this gets smoothed out and it looks more even. And then this tries to make it. My other criticism, again, was like that the hairline didn't go back on the side. And did I accidentally move this? What did I do? Okay, now it's back. I need to not click when I'm moving it. I need to remember how to use an Apple computer. So suddenly there's this highlight, but with a hard edge. These hard edges are indications of just manipulation in general that are very intentional. It's not. They've added some highlights, which is another tool you use with the burn tool, but you can choose to highlight. Because when you look at this edge, this is right where Joseph's hair recedes that far back in 1842. And I don't think it would have looked like this in 1839 because he had his hair permanently ripped out of his head in 1832, and then in March, and then that summer he said his hair just kept falling out from poison in June, July, when he was in Indiana. But the curly, like this is wavy. It's very, very curly. This is extreme curl right there. This is just curling, going all over the place. This is just 100% not Joseph Smith. I am 100% sure it's not him. It isn't him. Okay, see, it's receded all the way back to there, according to Maudsley in 1842. And it's got some sparser hairs. All it has to do is just get enough sparser that he gets tired of creating these bangs and brushing them forward. He just goes in and just cuts the bangs off. And so when I sketch the death mask and just expand it slightly, the shape of the hairline all the way up till about there matches really great. And ironically, it does come a little bit more forward right here, right? And this is a side that he has less hair, this person. And there's quite a bit of evidence that Joseph Smith did too, but no one knows. But yeah, you can see this is an 1800s copy from a negative of the double death mask, but you can see the hairs recede all the way back to there. Even in that profile that I showed you that they created of Larson daguerreotype, it's still like right there, right? But it's back to there. Okay, guys, he was almost 40. And he said he lost his hair, and people said he had a retreating forehead, and that the forward-facing painting in all these photos, the popular photos were of the forward-facing painting, didn't show it flattered him, made him look like he had really big, bouffant, hair that he didn't have. He could have worn a hairpiece. I just don't see any evidence. I probably would have heard of that if he did. I just think David Rogers took liberty, and It probably just ended up in Emma's bedroom and stayed there because Joseph probably said to keep it there, you know. But this is black top hat painting where you can see on the side of his head, it's just the whole side, it's just back, which is just not really that normal looking for male pattern baldness. You would still kind of have some hair along here, and it would just, you know. This looks a little distorted too. I don't think it's super accurate to a human face. And then the death mask, I think you can explain why it doesn't suddenly match that well from about there, because about there you can see mangled skin. And this is a skull that 8 doctors think is Joseph Smith. And from the side of this skull, you see these. This is a broken bone. That is a broken bone on both sides unilaterally. And it's broken up to the forehead. And it just lines up perfectly with this odd straight line. This is curved. This is a straight line. There's definitely damage. Similar damage lining up with that skull and this death mask. This is mangled skin. Okay. So the hairline's not going to be accurate right there. So right where it doesn't match, there's a ton of damage right there. Okay. It doesn't matter at all. Now I'm just going to go back to here and show you. I was just looking at my old videos on here on the very bottom where I do the facial analysis. And you can see this is J.S. Bibbin's work, and he, you know, his family was, I think they were more well off than others, in my opinion. They said that of Newark, so I think he was able to, when he decided to do photography, get a good studio. And you see the even lighting, you know, and you see even lighting Larson daguerreotype too, but that's an indication of something advanced photography techniques being able to do that. Because I think Lucian Foster was trying to work with window lighting, a lamp. You know, I think they were too scared to really, I mean, they could do photography outside, but that's also a little bit risky, especially if you're poor. And this is an expensive, you know, they created skylights in 1849, 5 years after Joseph Smith died. So it wasn't even a thing. So they had to kind of figure out, not until they'd taken the photo did they realize like the photography wasn't that great. But here's Wilford. He still has that harsh side lighting. His body's just turned more so that there is more lighting on his face. And he might have figured it out at that point. Like, well, maybe it'll look better if the body's angled instead of being straight on. Okay. And George Cannon did also photograph in the 1840s Wilford Woodruff. So it was Cannon and Lucian Foster that Wilford Woodruff talks about having taken his photo, but he has this flat white background. And he's really good. The lighting on Father Carter, is that who it is? The last name? Yeah, it doesn't look too dramatic. There's still, it's not super even though. And there's definitely light coming from that side. I think this is the one from the 1850s that ended up into a pin. Because the family claims that another one is the one that ended in pin, but he looks like 20. He looks 20 years older than he looks here. So I don't think, see this? I don't think this is a year apart. I think this is a year apart. Okay. Because it's cut in that shape. I think it was in a bosom pin. I don't think it was ever in a daguerreotype case. But Ron Fox put it. I have an email from him saying that he put it in a daguerreotype case. He's just being really honest. I don't think he's a bad guy, and he really found an amazing find and sent it to the church. He just also wants to think it's 1844 and not 1850. To him, that's important because he found something. To him, he thinks he found something by Lucian Foster. I just don't agree with him, but whatever. He already sold it. He already got his money, so okay, so And if you want to know about the forward-facing painting, I go into all of that in a huge section there. And then I talk about the life paintings in this section. But I was looking at my videos, the facial analysis, so I just want to play these and just, I mean, I started analyzing this before I owned it. And the guy who owned it before me didn't have the know-how to prove it. He could see it, and I think he sometimes has an eye. And there was another find that he found that was like, and he was getting pushback on, but he knew the history of this other person that was not LDS. Something he's into magic and stuff, but I went through and looked at it and looked at verified photos of this person, and then here's another photo. That's not that hard to verify, and he could have paid $50 to a woman, this same woman I talked to, and she would have said, yeah, who worked with the FBI. She only had like an associate's degree, but still she was trained in it, not like a PhD like the people I worked with, but I still have respect for those people that have actually trained in it. But there's people claiming to be experts that are just, I have a PhD, therefore I think I can do anything. So this is from January 2021. And so I decided to sketch the death mask. I hadn't done that before. I'd been doing the sketch superimposition since 2017. And I'm analyzing both eyebrows. And I take that and I put it on here, and it's just amazingly perfect. And I had been analyzing it en masse, where I sketched everything and put it on the death mask, and some things were just off. And I theorize, I think it's rigor mortis and just the skin tightening, the eye swell. So I think his eyebrows were brought closer together on the death mask, but also there's camera distortion. So I decided I really wanted just to sketch that one eyebrow and put it on, and then I decided to sketch every single individual feature. And I was just floored on how well that fit, but it fit extremely well when I did it en masse. But I knew there was camera distortion, but there was also just death. This is a mask on the skin of someone who is dead, not alive anymore, who died pretty horrifically. Look at that. That's how well it matches, and it catches that angle. And he was said to have thick, bushy eyebrows. Not quite catching whatever's going on here, but when you look at this, it's like, well, but there is all of this going on, which you could say is that it might just be the shape of his brow bone. This may not be an eyebrow hair. I don't really think that counts as an eyebrow. I think I've sketched it before, but I'm like, I think it's just like looking here. It's just his shape of his brow bone. So this isn't caught in it, right? But I don't think it means that the eyebrows don't match at all. These are lighter vellus hairs right there. And then I'll get to this eyebrow. So I'm playing a video where I'm actually talking. I'm talking over it and muted it. And so now here you see I've sketched it, and there's not much there to see or sketch. But I do see a couple areas that look like eyebrow hairs, and that's the shape I have, and it just matches super, super well. And any editing I've ever done to my photo with the comparison is just increasing the contrast. Different photos. I have a scanned version. I have a extremely expensive studio photo of it done by Colin Weaver, which again was on the level of transparency so that Tegan and Machi would know someone else held it. This is their photography of it, and they're well known to be all about accuracy, so they have not photoshopped this. Now this is a quality picture to use in the paper. And I won't play the video, but you can see how I sketched. You can play it though and see me take this and drag and drop that onto the death mask, and you can see There's the lash line, and then there's the epicanthus right there. Lines up flush right there. There is a wrinkle, but there's a wrinkle right there that it even, and a wrinkle right there, like these wrinkles. There's a lot of wrinkles, right? But there's that shape that really, it falls into place. A lot of actual wrinkles from the death mask and from this picture going to the death mask, they match. And then there's that onto this eye, and you see the lash line up, and the epicanthus is still in the inner and outer epicanthus, just the eye shape is the same. This is the shape of his eye. Okay, that's the shape on the death mask. It matches. And it was amazing to see when I read In Search of Joseph, because of the people that Zygote Media, they went ahead and 3D created it 3D because it's a little deceptive by seeing the discoloration, but they got another copy of it white, and then they sketched what they thought the eyebrows would be and the eyes and everything, and it was this eye shape. It was just really cool to see that. But I do want to play the video of the nose again. It just, I know I'm just being, redundant, but I don't care. I still think it's a photo of Joseph Smith. It's just, especially just the facial features alone, let alone the fact that it's printed in the right place at the right time to end up in the Smith family album. That Smith, going back to 1860, whereas the Larson daguerreotype is with 100% with that Smith family, but it's 1992 is the only point they can 100% trace it to. And so this has already been sketched and put on there. And so the width of this looks a little bit more narrow right there. But again, this picture of Phoebe, remember the light right there? And not so much on her, but on him, because he's very tall. The light is hitting the bottom and inside part of that nostril, so it's going to highlight the inside of his nostril. Whereas the light is coming from above here, so it's very dark. It's just, yeah, it's lighting. But this line, when I put it back onto there, it lines up where the shade changed. So you see there's a shadow, there's a highlight. That's where the skin is curving dramatically, right? And so when I take that and put it back onto here, that means that that curve in his nose lines up extremely well. But this, oh, I didn't pull it back up high enough, but this scar right there lines up with that shadow. So yeah, it's just still really cool to look at. And the mouth is really good. The chin, definitely an amazing fit right there. And you see he has that little bumper there, and I can faintly see it in the forward facing painting. But here's what I'm talking about, how when I sketch the death mask and then I just expand it. So that's the only thing that from all those videos down, I was just grabbing and dropping it, right? This one, I would grab it, drop it, expand it. Only one was the hair outline, but it dimensionally, things are falling into place flush, like that, how far back that hairline is right there. There's some stragglers, but there's also stragglers right there. But it matches, This is plaster, but up to about there. But what happens right there? You start seeing mangled skin, and there's a hole. Unfortunately, there's broken parietal bones on the sides of his head. So there's all that, you guys. It's just going back to historical evidence and provenance. And just the fact that these CDVs look similar, but 1860 CDV, 1840s image, 1860 CDV, 1840s image, Smith family album, Smith family album, harsh side lighting, uneven background, um, like this is draped. It's not a taut. It's not a professional. It's not a post 1844. Well, so, but it's 1845, but it's not some refined studio that she's in. Neither is he, and neither is Phoebe Mulford Woodruff. And Joseph Slocum died in Plano, Kendall County, Illinois, where Joseph Smith III had been living, and that was in 1891. So I think several years before that is when he really moved to Plano himself. So then he 100% sure we're in Plano living possibly together at the same time at some point. But and then here's Elisha Bibbins saying he's a clergyman from New York, but all of his kids are from Pennsylvania because that's where he was a Methodist circuit rider when he met Emma Smith's family. But they traveled; they wouldn't just stay there forever. And Joseph Slocum was born outside of Scranton, which is just due south of Susquehanna. And then here you see 10 years later, his father has died, and his mother Alice is living with him, which those several obituaries noted she was, but then they also talked about him being, going to that conference in Pennsylvania, even though he's from Illinois. Died in his chair. George Peck said his friend Elisha Bibbins died in his chair. Where the funeral was held was exactly the same. So there's so much provenance. It's ridiculous that people ignore it. You see Joseph III travels outside of Millington. And here I show the maps. I'm sorry, guys, I haven't updated this page to match the main page I thought I had. But I've also updated and tried to fix the alignment of a lot of stuff 5 or 10 or 20 times, and I hit publish, and it looks fine when I review it, and then it looks off again. So, thinking the builder is just can't handle the amount of information I have on that page. So, yeah. Did I change the lighting? Oh, did I do that? So is the wording gone? But I was able to see it earlier. Yeah, so it was black and then the wording was light white. So, okay. Well, I'm going to fix that. I'll try to fix that tonight and just end this here and try to fix this whole page. And you guys have a good day.